Ready to go?
Yes, I am, Your Worship.
And clerk, you're ready to go? Fantastic. Okay. This is our community's house. We are all guests in it here to serve our community. My name is Mike Little, Mayor for the District of North Vancouver, and the pleasure falls to me to welcome everybody here to our regular meeting of Council for Monday, October 18th at 7 o'clock. Council, we have an agenda that has been presented. I've just amended slightly, and that would be to have delegations, then recognition, then public input. But other than that, the rest of the agenda would stay as is. Will somebody move that? Moved by Councillor Bond. Is there a seconder on the matter? Councillor Hanson, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carries. This is a hybrid meeting of council. And so what that means is that members of council, members of staff, and members of the public are participating in this meeting both in person here in the council chambers and virtually through our web services that we have. This council meeting is being offered in a little bit of a legislative limbo, I've said before, which is the old Medical Health Order 192 ended on September 30th. And that was when we were given permission to go ahead and come up with our new regulations pertaining to virtual meetings. And so we have coming up very shortly in the agenda the proposed adoption of some changes to our meeting procedures. And at that time, then we will be fully authorized to participate entirely virtually. But the limbo we're in right now is that we have to have quorum in person in order for it to count as a meeting. So I want to thank members of council for coming in today for this to make sure that we have quorum in person. But after those changes in procedural bylaw, we may have the ability to be more flexible in how we offer these meetings. And I have to say, we've really enjoyed that the public has been able to participate in the meetings virtually. It has opened up access to our meetings to more people, and we intend to continue welcoming people through different ways into our council meetings. At this point, we have, the agenda has been adopted. So the first item that we have today is delegation. This is Royal Canadian Legion 114, the start of the poppy campaign. So I'm going to ask all members of council and everybody in the audience today to rise while we receive the color party from the Legion. Good morning! Attention! Order! So, and I will just say that our expectation for people participating in person is that you will keep your mask on while you're seated. If you are the active speaker at the time, it is your choice to remove your mask. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Mayor, Council, staff, and district residents. My name is Diana Sabo, and I'm the President of Branch 114 of the Royal Canadian Legion, Lynn Valley. With me tonight are members of our executive, First Vice President Keith Willett, Second Vice President Kelly Willett, Treasurer Jim Phillipson, Secretary Linda Finley, members of our Legion's Vancouver Colour Party, and members of our branch. 100 years ago this year, the red poppy was formally adopted by nations of the British Commonwealth and other allied nations as a symbol of remembrance. Madame Anna Guerin, later christened the Poppy Lady from France, inspired by John McCrae's In Flanders Fields, had an idea to adopt the distribution of the poppy on Armistice Day as a way to raise money for veterans' needs and to remember those who had given their lives during the First World War. It had become the symbol of remembrance for all who had served in areas of conflict since that time, to perpetuate the sacred memory and provide for veterans and their families in their time of need. In Canada, by an act of Parliament passed on June 30, 1948, the Royal Canadian Legion became the official and lawful guardian of the poppy and remembrance in Canada. From the last Friday in October to Remembrance Day on November 11 of each year, millions of Canadians wear a poppy as a visual pledge to never forget those who sacrificed for our freedom. The Royal Canadian Legion invites everyone across the country to show their recognition by proudly wearing this symbol of remembrance and taking a moment to reflect. The Poppy campaign is very much a local initiative conducted by Legion branches in cities, towns, and communities across the country. Donations collected during the Poppy campaign are held in trust at the branch level to directly support veterans and their families within their community. Prior to COVID-19, the Lynn Valley Legion provided a local Remembrance Day ceremony in Veterans Square, ensuring that veterans, families, seniors, youth, able-bodied, and differently able-bodied persons in Lynn Valley are given the opportunity to remember those who gave their lives in service to their country. We are also instrumental in providing guidance and advice to smaller groups, including schools, on how to run and manage remembrance ceremonies in their institutions. During COVID-19, we abide by all the protocols and orders issued by the Provincial Health Officer. As we did last year, we will be holding a small, intimate gathering in front of our branch on Lynn Valley Road to honor the memory of all those who have served to protect our freedoms. We will be laying wreaths donated by many local North Shore organizations, which will be later transported to the cenotaph at the corner of Lynn Valley Road and Mountain Highway. Organizing and implementing a poppy campaign, particularly during COVID-19, is a daunting task. Coordinating volunteers to man over 500 hours at 9 high-profile tagging stations, the distribution of poppy boxes to over 200 stores in the district of North Vancouver, the ordering and distribution of over 150 wreaths and ribbons, and the collection and counting of all the funds received is a full-time job in itself, all by volunteers. We are truly fortunate to have enlisted the help of one of our members, Mr. Joe Phillips, our poppy chair behind me, and our membership for volunteering countless hours in aid to getting it all done. Last year, Joe's efforts to develop a way for us to provide poppies, which we call tagging, during a global pandemic were truly inspiring and innovative. By partnering with the North Shore Salvation Army and borrowing their Christmas kettles, Joe designed a way for us to tag and maintain COVID-19 protocols. In 2020, during the pandemic, we were successful in raising 35% more than we did in 2019, for a total of $71,000. That was pretty epic for us, our little branch. This year, as it is the 100th anniversary of the use of the poppy as a symbol of remembrance, we are setting a lofty goal of raising $100,000. We feel that this is entirely achievable with the support of our membership and the district residents, who have always proven to be very generous. As mentioned previously, all funds raised at the branch level are held in trust and distributed directly back into the community that the branch services, and for us, that means the District of North Vancouver. Over the past 20 years, the Lynn Valley Legion alone has redistributed over $1.8 million from Poppy Trust funds back directly into our community. We're extremely proud of this accomplishment. We like to refer to ourselves as the little legion that could and can and will do. We thank you for the opportunity to provide this information to you. We will be open on November 11th and welcome your attendance if you are in the neighborhood. At this time, we are proud to present First Poppy to Mayor and Council tonight. You will have been provided with your poppy package, and at this time ask that you attach your poppy on the left side over your heart. And after I present to Mayor Mike Little, we will have a short video presentation before we commence.
Okay.
I'll proceed with the video.
One 100 years ago, an inspiring woman had a vision, a bright red poppy to honor veterans who lost their lives in the First World War and to help raise support funds to help others in the aftermath.
The idea was conceived by Madame Anna Guérin of France.
sparked by John McCrae's poem In Flanders Fields. Anna had originally founded a charity to help rebuild war-torn regions of France after the First World War.
Poppies made of fabric were sold to help her charity. She presented the concept to France's allies, including the Great War Veterans Association in Canada, which later became the Royal Canadian Legion. The idea was adopted, and the poppy symbol made its first appearance in Canada on July 6, 1921, the year of the first poppy campaign to support our veterans. To mark the symbol's 100th anniversary in 2021, the Royal Canadian Legion produced a replica of the original fabric pin.
The familiar image has come to reflect the sacrifices of fallen Canadian veterans from all arms of the military and from all missions, including 2 world wars, Korea, Afghanistan, Bosnia, peacekeeping duties, and other assignments.
Canada's Parliament entrusted the Legion with the exclusive right to use the poppy as the nation's symbol of remembrance and to safeguard its image, a pledge it honors today.
100 years later, the symbol is unmistakable. Its meaning still deep.
The poppy of remembrance honors sacrifice. The poppy of remembrance cries, never again. The poppy of remembrance reflects solace and support.
Anna Gaudin's vision lives on.
To learn more about how the Legion helps veterans, visit legion.ca.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you. On behalf of the Council for the District of North Vancouver, I want to express our heartfelt appreciation to the Legion members and the services they offer through volunteering of their time and their talents to their community. Thank them for their support for veterans in our community going forward. We really do appreciate it. Out to you for the color guard. Would you like us to stand for the recession? Yes. I'll ask all members present to rise. So again, unfortunately, during COVID, the look of our recognitions will be a little bit different, but thank you very much to the Legion members. At this point, they were a delegation, so I'm going to move receipt of the delegation. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Back. I don't see any discussion on the matter, so I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of receiving the delegation? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you very much to the Legion members. We do appreciate your services. The next item that we have this evening is another special item. This is a recognition. This is the 2021 Climate and Energy Action Award being presented to the District of North Vancouver. And welcome.
Thank you. I'm really glad to be here tonight. I'm Patricia Bell. I'm from the Community Energy Association, and I'm representing CEA as well as our award program sponsors, Province of BC, UBCM, Fortis BC, BC Hydro, and Real Estate Foundation of BC, to congratulate the District of North Vancouver, Mayor Mike Little, and all councillors here and on the screen, and all District of North Vancouver staff on receiving a Climate and Energy Action Award in the adaptation category for the leadership shown in developing the North Shore Sea Level Rise Risk Assessment and Adaptive Management Strategy. We were very pleased to announce your receipt of this award at the UBCM convention in September, just a month or so ago. As you may know, CEA is a member-based nonprofit organization. We've been working in BC since 1995, to help BC communities reduce emissions, conserve energy, and progressively transition to a low-carbon economy. And one of the ways that we think that we help is by recognizing achievement. We have celebrated the many ways that local governments in BC have helped their communities save energy emissions and money. And whether big or small, urban or rural, north or south, we recognize all communities that are bringing innovative climate and energy solutions to the table. From an array of strong and innovative nominations, our independent judging panel selected the District of North Vancouver and its partners for the 2021 Climate and Energy Action Award in the Climate Adaptation category for several reasons. First of all, the North Shore Sea Level Rise Risk Assessment and Adaptive Management Strategy was a clear winner for its comprehensive nature, very comprehensive plan. It also stood out as the first multi-jurisdictional sea level rise assessment and strategy in Metro Vancouver, and perhaps actually in all of BC. Not only did you include a range of partners in developing it, but you had a wide consultation process with diverse groups and stakeholders. So this is a very excellent example of effective regional community and business partners working together to reduce the impacts of climate change. I wanted to let you know that this award win for the district will be reflected in Municipal World magazine in December, along with the other winners in the other categories this year. We also have a virtual celebration video that can be found at communityenergy.ca/awards. I'll actually send the link to your staff as well so that you can see that. On behalf of the Community Energy Association and our co-sponsors, I congratulate you on this inspiring achievement. This award is an essential celebration of your success at this point in your climate action journey. We've followed all the things that the District of North Vancouver has done in over the many years that you've been doing it. And we'd like to follow your progress as well on implementation of the strategy. It's very important work. I now invite Mayor Mike Little and Council to receive the District of North Vancouver's Climate and Energy Action Award for Climate Adaptation.
Thank you very much, Patricia Bell. We'll find a place of honor for this. Again, with a lot of these types of things, one thing that municipalities are very good at is copying the best practices of other municipalities. And so if you think that what we've done is a good practice for others to engage in, I'm happy for our community to be able to serve that purpose and hope that other municipalities will follow suit and come up with their own regional plans for similar challenges. Thank you very much for your presentation. Okay. The next item on the agenda at this time is the returning back to public input, although I did not actually adopt the minutes, and we typically do that. I know that it's out of order, but Council, you have 3 sets of minutes that have been circulated. Are there any errors or omissions from the minutes as presented? Hearing none, call the question. Will someone move by Councillor Back? Is there a seconder on receipt of the minutes? Okay, seconded by Councillor Hanson. Call the question. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carries, and the meeting minutes of July 26th, September 31st, and September 27th have now been adopted. Next item that we have is public input. Council reserves up to 30 minutes at the start of every regular meeting of Council for input from members of the public, and priority is given to those speaking to agenda items. Tonight we have 5 people who have signed up to speak, only 2 at the front end of the meeting. The others have signed up to speak as their items come up. At this point, I'm going to invite Peter Teven up to the front. Welcome, Mr. Teven. You have 3 minutes to address the council.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, Your Worship and Council. Peter, for the record, Peter Teven, 1900 Block, Indian River Crescent. You may recall, or you will likely recall, my input to you at the last meeting, that too many matters are being rammed through with first, second, and third readings all at one time without proper input, consideration, or debate. Some of you nodded, if not in agreement, at least in acknowledgement. But then you turned around and gave first, second, and third reading to tonight's agenda item 8.3, the council procedures bylaw updates. Councillor Forbes made a motion to bifurcate, but not one of you other offered to second the motion. And under Robert's rules, that means that it can't even be discussed. I was alarmed at that, and certainly I thought it warranted discussion. I wonder how this is considered due process. For my part, having read through the staff report, it makes me wonder if each of you in turn did so as well, because there are sections that I have big concerns about. There is one section, in my opinion, that does warrant first, second, and third readings due to time pressure created by the expiration of Provincial Health Order M192. That's the change to Section 8, enabling electronic participation in meetings. One may argue that the changes to Section 22, public input, specifically the sign-up process, is requisite, but I'm concerned Section 22 has deep flaws that can and will lead to abusive process. The rest of the changes to Sections 3, 5, 7, 12, 31, 41, 44, and 46 are not time sensitive and require more work and scrutiny. This item has almost become like an omnibus piece of legislation. I'm sad to report this fact to you. Shortly after Provincial Order M192 was issued, it was said here in this chamber that we get to have first, second, and third readings all at once. We get to conduct meetings without the public in attendance. Not the choice of words we're forced to, compelled to, required to, but we get to. To me, this is very telling what appears to be a general disregard for the public here at the district, that we, the public, are somehow a nuisance or a distraction from whatever it is your agenda is. That M192 finally allowed you guys to do away with the burden of public input or scrutiny. This is why people like myself and Dr. Cost have taken such painstaking attempts to remain engaged throughout this pandemic, because it's too difficult for others to do. May I continue and finish?
Yes, please.
Thank you. I urge you to move and vote for option 3 in tonight's agenda, to rescind third reading and debate possible amendments to the bylaw. Pass Section 8 if you will, but slow down please on the other things. They are not time sensitive and should not be rushed. If you must force Sections 41 and 46 along with 8, then please figure out quickly how these new measures can be protected from abuse by people seeking to stack the speakers list. In closing, I want to thank Councillor Forbes for being the only member of council at the last meeting who was willing to include the public in such important matters as our democracy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Teven. Thank you very much, Mr. Teven. The next speaker that I have is Bev Parslow. Welcome, Mr. Parslow. You have 3 minutes to address the council.
Okay, thank you. Dear members of council, thank you very much indeed for giving me a few minutes of your time. This is a follow-up to the email that I sent to all of you on the weekend. The replies from the 3 municipalities seem to indicate that we are spending more money on speed bumps than the local norm. Can the district examine the costs of speed bumps and also the manner in which the residents will pay for them? If we are really emphasizing traffic calming, perhaps these costs could be at a more economic level. On our street, and that's Donegal, it would be a lot cheaper for us to put up 2 30K signs rather than 4 speed bumps at least 4,600 each. On the bump out situation on Evergreen, it has now been labeled a pilot project and will be completed next year. This has taken an incredible amount of time and is still not completed. Also a great deal of effort as well. I am again asking for a master traffic calming plan for Delbrook, and I wondered if the council has thought of a joint task force on traffic calming for the district. Thank you for your consideration.
Barzil. Okay. Would anybody else like to address council? Sorry, Councillor Back.
Get my mic to work there. Could we have staff report back on the issues that Mr. Parcel has brought up around traffic calming? I know we had a speaker last week who was raising similar issues with Delbrook specifically.
I believe we have received the email from Mr. Parslow. I also received another letter from Mr. Parslow this last week, and we'll make sure that the staff responses are circulated to council as well and form part of the public record. Okay, I see no further speakers making themselves known. Juan Palacio, yeah, come on down. As I said, there are 3 additional speakers that have identified themselves, and they'll be speaking at their items, but welcome.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of the council. I wanted to speak regarding a very simple topic that comes regarding public meetings, public hearings, and just council meetings in general. And it's the way that they are presented in, like advertised in newspapers, and I don't see them online very often, but it's how they are very simple. It's usually just a box with white text with a title of what is going to be discussed and the date and time. Well, again, the council is open. I don't see it as very appealing or attractive to many people. Many people, they honestly are attracted to images and things like that. For example, when fireworks were discussed last week, it was just advertised on a page in the middle of the North Shore News with a very simple display, just the white background and some text. I believe that perhaps in order to generate more interest in these sorts of things, more visually appealing advertisements should be used. Perhaps, you know, just a simple picture of fireworks could have been more visually appealing. Some advertisements on social media, I don't know if they are used, could be put up every once in a while to let people know if a public hearing or public meeting or just a council meeting is coming up. And on the DNV website, it does require several clicks to get to the council meeting agenda and just council meeting information. And there have been studies that have shown that many people, if they go to a website and cannot find what they're looking for within 3 or 4 clicks, they often just give up and stop searching for them. So these are just general criticisms, and I think perhaps they could be considered. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Juan Palacio. Appreciate it. Okay, anyone else wishing to address council? And for attendees participating online, that would be raising your hand, and I'll move you over to the panel. Okay, I'm seeing none. So at this point, I'm going to carry on with the rest of the meeting. Okay, council, we have on to item number 6. This is release of closed meeting decisions. We have September 21st closed meeting of council. We have a release decision on the Maplewood Fire and Rescue Center tender update that has been now publicly released. We have no council workshop reports. Moving on to item number 8, this is reports from council or staff. Council, we have 8 items on the main agenda here at this point. 3 of those items are up for adoption. If council is okay with it, I'm going to propose that those 3 adoption items be moved to consent agenda.
So moved.
Any member of council can withdraw an item from consent. No members of council wishing to withdraw 8.2, 8.3, and 8.4 from consent. It's been moved by Councillor Murray. I'll second the matter. We'll call the question. All those in favor? Contrary minded? The motion carries. So if you were here for item 8.2, 8.3, or 8.4, those matters were up for adoption, which means they could not have been debated, and those matters have now been passed by the council. Resuming the regular business, on to item 8.1. This is development variance permit 40.20 for Coach House at 1061 Hansworth Road. And I do have a speaker in favor listed, Dominic Sy. And I believe Dominic Sy is participating virtually. Do we have confirmed attendance? Okay, we're just promoting them as a panelist now, and we'll Dominic Sy into the meeting. Okay, Dominic Sy, can you hear me?
Good evening, Your Worship and members of council. Yes, I can hear you.
Welcome. You have 3 minutes to address the council.
Thank you very much. Just to let everyone know, my video has a tendency to freeze. I am the architect for the project, and the owner of the property has asked me to just speak on behalf of the project as to the process and the arguable merits of the strategy that we chose to adopt. So the project is proposing a passive house as the principal house, as well as a step 5 energy code house for the coach house. We have worked with staff with a number of items that were brought up by from what I was made to understand, the neighbor, with respect to privacy, as well as comments from the city arborist with respect to tree protection. And those 2 things go hand in hand with respect to the coach house design. And if I may just summarize, there are 26 trees that are directly affecting the lot, most of them belonging to the neighbor's property. So the coach house design was such that the placement of it was done so to protect the tree protection zone of the trees adjacent to the backyard. And the design was specifically designed as a 1-story building to enhance privacy between the 2 neighboring properties. As was brought up as a concern by one of the neighbors, I believe. Again, we are the owner of the property is trying to propose a very forward-thinking passive house and a step 5 coach house, and I believe we have acted in good faith with the members of staff to produce a design that strikes a balance between the tree protection, our goals, and the privacy of between the owner and the neighboring properties. That is all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Next up, I'm going to go over to staff. I saw Mr. Hartford here. Mr. Hartford, do you have your comments?
I do, Your Worship. Thank you. As a brief overview of the application, the previous speaker noted that he has applied on behalf of the property owner at 1061 Hansworth Road to construct a coach house in the rear yard of this lot. The site is currently occupied by a single-family home with a secondary suite, and the house is proposed to be demolished. Surrounding residential uses have the same RS3 zoning as the subject site, and Hansworth Secondary School is located just east of the property. The proposal is for a 932 square foot single-story coach house located at the rear of the lot. The coach house would have one open parking space at the south end of the property's driveway. The lot meets the basic zoning requirements to accommodate a coach house, but a variance to the zoning bylaw is required because the lot does not have a rear lane and it is not a corner lot. Access to the coach house will be from the front of the lot on Hansworth Road. A variance to the required location for vehicle access to the front of the lot rather than the rear is being requested. All other zoning bylaw regulations are met in the proposal. A new single-family dwelling is proposed to be constructed at the same time as the coach house. However, the new house is not part of the development variance permit under consideration as it complies fully with zoning. Should the variance to accommodate the coach house be issued, the new house would not be permitted to have a secondary suite. Development variance permit 40.21 is now ready for council's consideration.
Okay, thank you very much. I noted from the report that it said there were 14 notices sent out to neighbors. Did the district receive any responses on those? The report says that there were no responses, but I know the Edgemont and Upper Capilano Community Association indicated that they actually did send a response. Mr. Hartford, did you not receive that response?
Your worship, there were two notifications. One was done early in the project review, and staff did receive the comments from the Edgemont and Upper Capilano Community Association. They indicated that they had no concerns with the proposal. We then undertook a statutory notification just prior to this council meeting, and the Community Association acknowledged receipt of the notification, but did not provide any specific comments.
Thank you very much. Okay, members of council looking for direction on this matter. I see the first speaker is Councillor Hanson. Do you have a motion? The staff recommendation has been moved. Is there a seconder for the staff recommendation? Councillor Murray, your hand is up.
Yes, second.
Okay, seconded by Councillor Murray. So the first speaker is the mover, Councillor Hanson.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm happy to move this staff recommendation. The only way in which this particular coach house fails to comply with the zoning bylaws with respect to access. I believe that there is a reasonable plan for access put forward, namely a driveway that will access both units. This is exactly the same access as is in place in the adjoining property that already has a long driveway approaching a house at the back. The lot is very large, 10,939 square feet, which easily accommodates the coach house. I note in the staff report that the proponent is sensitive to the need to maximize tree retention in the area, and that the notifications to the neighbors and the community association have only solicited one negative criticism, and it was with respect to impacts on the privacy, which I believe in the circumstances are not a reason to deny the proposal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Hanson. Councillor Murray.
Thank you. And I believe the architect stated that the issues of privacy had been addressed. Is that correct, Mr. Hartford? With the privacy screen, is that not what I heard?
Your worship, Councillor Murray, there have been some changes to the proposal to incorporate some hedging and relocate the access door. So those were undertaken to try to address the comments about.
And did we receive any further comments from the neighbor in regards to that, or was there some communication with the neighbor?
As I mentioned, we took a statutory notification in the last week, and there were no comments from that neighbor.
Okay, and then the accommodation of the parking, and I'm sorry, I'm hearing lots of feedback. Yeah, okay. So the parking in the front will be able to accommodate how many cars attached to the coach house?
Your worship, Councillor Murray, there will be one dedicated parking space for the coach house and 2 parking spaces for the principal dwelling.
Okay, great, thank you. I'm in support of this application.
Thank you very much, Councillor Murray. Next speaker is Councillor Curran.
Thank you. Just a couple questions for staff. I am pleased to see passive equivalent. I'm not sure if they're actually going for passive house standard, but is the mechanical system As we learned, we still have a limitation at local government. Even with step 5 on Part 9 buildings, the greenhouse gas intensity far exceeds our limit with step 3 buildings because we're not able to regulate. So is the applicant using fracked fossil gas in this building, or are they using renewable energy?
Your worship, Councillor Curran, I can only comment that the coach house is proposed to be built to step 5. The representative for the applicant may be able to comment on whether natural gas is proposed to be used.
Daniel Sy or Dominic Sy, are you still, I see you're still connected to the meeting. Are you able to answer that question about heating source?
The heating source, we will be taking the advisement of the passive house consultant that we have retained. My best knowledge, it was most likely be an electric system, as this is the way that we have been able to achieve passive house standards in previous projects.
Yeah, thank you for that. I will just, I do support this. I just highly encourage you to go that route because it will save money in the long run. This is the way to do it when you're building the building rather than spending the money to retrofit down the line. Much more cost effective upfront. And I'm also just going to be interested in following along with staff. The report indicated that there was some interesting plans to ensure the preservation and protection of the trees. So it will be interesting to follow that process as it moves along, because it sounds like there's some new, well, at least something different there in terms of how they're proposing to build to ensure tree protection. So I appreciated seeing that, and I wish the applicant good luck. And I think these passive house projects that are very, very energy efficient are something that we should be proud of. So thanks.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Curran. Okay, so for my own comments on the matter, the overland access, I'm very glad that council does still retain the ability to make a decision on these based on whether the overland access is appropriate. I would say that on a 10,000 square foot lot with an adjacent public institution, that the impact of the laneway will be minimal on other neighbors. And I think it is reasonable given the size of the lot. So I will be supportive of the permit, of the variance. Any other comments from members of council? Seeing none, I'm going to call the question on the motion. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carries. Thank you very much. 8.2, 8.3, and 8.4 were passed as consent agenda items, which moves us on to item 8.5. This is development variance permit 2517, phase 1 of 904 to 944 Lytton Street, and we have a speaker on the matter. Brent Carlson, are you a part of the meeting? Just moving Brent Carlson over as a panelist now, so we'll just get him connected. Brent Carlson, can you hear me? You're muted.
There, how's that? Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. You have 3 minutes to address the council. Welcome.
Great. I'll be quick. So just wanted to say good evening, Your Worship and members of council. Brent Carlson, you all know, I think by now, with Anthem. Just want to say that we're really pleased at this point that council voted to approve the rezoning of this property, which was finalized in June. And as such, we look forward to receiving DP approval tonight. The application is compliant with the now issued rezoning, and we look forward to carrying on to the approval process so that we can deliver on the various housing options that are planned. And so with that, we're available for any comments or questions that might arise. So I'll be here along with our architect, landscape architect, should any input from them be needed by council. So we'll leave it at that, and thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Brent Carlson. I'm going to move now to staff On item 8.5, I believe Mr. Hartford, you had some comments?
I do, Your Worship. Thank you. Your Worship and members of Council, as background on this application, Council adopted the bylaws for the Seymour Estates project on June 21st, 2021. Bylaw 8423 rezoned the site to a new comprehensive development zone. Housing Agreement Bylaw 8424 ensures that all future strata owners will be eligible to rent out their units, and Housing Agreement Bylaw 8425 secures the market and non-market rental units in the project. Anthem has now applied to develop phase 1 of the site with a mix of apartments, townhouses, and a small commercial space, and the proposal requires Council's consideration of Development Permit 25.17. The entire development site is approximately 6.3 acres. It's located on the southeast corner of Mount Seymour Parkway and Lytton Street. The overall development proposal includes 4 sites, which are intended to be developed in 2 phases. Phase 1 includes sites 1, 2, and 4, with a total of 310 dwelling units in a mix of apartment and townhouse formats. Future phase 2 includes site 3 with 31 townhouse units. The development permit currently under consideration is for phase 1 and is anticipated that the phase 2 lands will be used for construction staging during the phase 1 construction. A separate development permit will be forwarded to Council for phase 2. Site 1 within phase 1 includes a 6-story strata apartment building in the northwest portion of the property with 119 strata units. 25 of these units are being marketed as rent to own. The building includes an indoor amenity space, a common rooftop terrace, shared outdoor space, and a playground. Site 2 includes 102 strata townhouse units in 7 buildings in the northeast portion of the site. One of the 3-bedroom townhouse units will be owned and operated by Habitat for Humanity and rented to a family earning between $35,000 and $74,000 per year. This site includes 3 outdoor courtyard spaces located between the townhouse buildings. The Site 4 proposal includes a 6-story rental building located in the southwest portion of the property. The building includes a total of 89 rental units, of which 56 are market rental and 33 are non-market rental. The building also includes a common amenity area and a small commercial space of just over 900 square feet. The proposed rents for the non-market rental units in the Site 4 building are intended to be affordable to low to moderate income households, and the rental tenure and rents for these units are secured through the Housing Agreement Bylaw. The project has been reviewed against the applicable development permit area guidelines for form and character of multifamily and ground-oriented housing, energy and water conservation and greenhouse gas emission reduction, and wildfire hazard. With respect to the project's green building approach, the applicant has committed to the use of no fossil fuels and for the project to meet Energy Step Code Level 3 with a low carbon energy system for the residential portions of the project. Development Permit 25.17 for Phase 1 of this project is now ready for Council consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hartford. I will be moving the staff recommendation, which is issuance of the development permit. Is there a seconder on the matter? Seconded by Councillor Curran. Just for my own comments, I was supportive of this at the rezoning for this property. I drive by this site all the time, and I know that people in the community are eager to see construction begin on this space. And look forward to this project proceeding. It appears as though it's met all of the requirements of that staff have had on the project, and so I will be supporting issuance of the permit. I believe the seconder on the matter was Councillor Curran. Any further comments?
I'll just add that I also supported this at rezoning. Pleased to see it moving forward. Just wanted to clarify from staff moving forward that the language that we use around fossil fuel free does not include renewable natural gas that we're always talking about hydro. We're talking or some sort of renewable. In this case, I believe the applicant has committed to electric. And I just wanted to make sure that that was clear, that there was never any confusion about what fossil fuel free did not, because renewable natural gas is fossil fuels, because it's most of it comes from fracked gas. It doesn't come from anywhere else at this point.
Yeah, and I think the point you're raising is that someone who agrees to renewable can always change their mind in future, whereas somebody who builds fossil fuel free, that is the way it'll go forward. So Mr. Hartford, is that your understanding then in this case, that it will be not just renewable natural gas, that it will be electric?
Your worship, that's correct. The development covenant provisions would require electric power source for the buildings.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And just the last point to clarify, when you were doing the presentation, Mr. Hartford, you mentioned the proposed rents, and then you said that that would be in the covenant. So I just wanted to clarify what the below market rents, if that's what we saw at the, I was just, that language threw me off a bit when you said proposed.
Mr. Hartford?
Your worship, Councillor Curran, I said proposed because the units do not yet exist. The rents for the non-market units have not changed and have been secured in the housing agreement bylaw.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing this move along. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Back, your comments?
Thanks, Your Worship. Yes, I'm very supportive of this, as I was at the previous rezoning. Just a question to perhaps Mr. Hartford or the applicant. I'm just wondering what the timing looks like as far as when construction would actually begin on phase 1.
Hartford?
Your worship, Councillor Back, I will need to defer to the applicant on that. I suspect they are anxious to get under construction, but I don't know the actual timeline.
Mr. Carlson, when will we see activity on the site of a construction nature?
We'll be commencing construction of a presentation center first, and that will, upon issuance of a building permit, likely in November, that will commence. But then we still have to get building permit approvals for each of the buildings. So as quickly as staff, I guess, are able to review our applications once they're in, which will be submitted also in November, construction will proceed as soon as we get approvals.
And thank you. And just to follow up, will there be any access issues to the rec center there at all while construction is happening?
Was that question clear, Mr. Carlson? The question is about retaining access to Ron Andrews Rec Center. What obstructions are planned through the construction traffic management for Lytton proper?
Yeah, well, there is in place a construction traffic management plan, which will be adhered to make sure the accessibility to Ron Andrews and as importantly to the high school is maintained in a safe and manageable way. So we'll access to those sites throughout, and where needed, we'll have flaggers and so forth to make sure it's safe to do so.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Back. Councillor Murray, your comments?
Thank you, Mayor Little. When is the subdivision on this site occurring? Is there this is well, I'll just go to Mr. Hartford first. Mr. Carlson, thank you. And maybe you could just turn your mic off, yeah, because there's so much feedback on when you're sitting at home. So is the subdivision already done, Mr. Hartford? This is an unusual development application, as we don't usually split up a site like this.
Your worship, Councillor Murray, the subdivision has not yet. It has not yet been completed. It will need to be completed before the building permit is issued for the first site.
So we do the development permit, then subdivision. Why wouldn't we do subdivision first, then development permit, then building permit? That seems, is that unusual?
I don't think it's unusual. It just depends on the specifics of the project. We have had other large projects such as Sealand Village that have included subdivisions, and those have typically been done following issuance of development permit.
What is the setbacks off Mount Seymour Parkway and Lytton on these buildings?
You'll have to give me a moment to look that up, but I will try to get that for you.
The reason I asked that question, Mayor Little, is because I'm quite surprised, a little bit shocked actually, in regards to the setbacks of the Tatla building on Mount Seymour Parkway, certainly in comparison to the Diebold building, which is across Parkgate Avenue on the, I guess, the eastern side. And you know, I understand that the building is denser than the Diebold project, but I think the community is a bit surprised too, that the doors are almost on the sidewalk. There's maybe like, you know, 8 feet from the sidewalk to the door, where the Diebold project actually has a bit of boulevard, a garden, you walk up several stairs, and then you get to the unit. And I fear that these, and I'm hoping I'm wrong, but I fear that for some reason, how we're considering these rather dense projects, they're getting closer to the sidewalk. And I don't think that's good for the owners of the units, nor is it good for the general public. There's got to be some relief from the parkway. And you know, the east side of Lytton is the major thoroughfare actually for all of Windsor. It's where all the kids access the school. They do not go to the front door. There's very few that are accessing Windsor from Broadview. The vast majority of students that are either driving or being dropped off, taking transit or walking, access Windsor on Lytton. So I think that traffic management plan is going to be, you know, paramount, because the access into the property is 2 driveways off Lytton. And actually the kids, when they get to the end of Lytton and left and they access Windsor through the back school, it's a terrifying existing driveway and road as it is, let alone putting a major construction project that is going to last several years, like this one. So I think probably I would request that the transportation or the traffic management plan attached to this development is just given to council, so we're aware, because I think there's going to be some challenges with this. Did we find the answer to the setbacks, Mr. Hartford?
Mr. Hartford?
Sorry, I have the bylaw open. I need about 30 more seconds to determine which buildings in question are being asked about.
Yeah, so building 1 is represented on page 128 of the council package, and it does show setbacks. It's not a 0 lot line as represented in the visuals, but I'm really more or less
hard to read on, you know, the plans.
to give Mr. Hartford some time.
No, I appreciate that, Your Worship, and I've determined that this is setback F for the townhouse units that front Mount Seymour Parkway, and the minimum required setback is 20 feet from the property line. There is a significant amount of space between the property line and the curb of Mount Seymour Parkway.
I think Councillor Muir is also after Lytton as well.
Okay.
What is the setback off of Lytton?
Bear with me for a second.
So I'm just wondering, when Tatla was approved, what happened there? I'd be interested for staff to advise on that after this. I'm not asking for that information now, but it's a bit stunning.
Your Worship, Councillor Muri, the setback from Lytton is also 20 feet. For
okay, that's good.
the building.
Okay. And then the access into the cafe or whatever that little retail space, is it a dedicated cafe to the retail space? Were they not putting a cafe in? Wasn't that one of the carrots?
Your Worship, Councillor Muri, there is a 900 square foot commercial space in that apartment building.
And is that dedicated to a cafe, or is it just a commercial space for lease?
It's a commercial space for lease, but the applicant has indicated they expect they will be leasing that to a coffee shop operator.
And is that part of this phase?
It is part of this phase.
And that's in the rear of the property?
It's at the south side of the property, but the commercial space is facing Lytton Street.
Right. And so access will be into, like, will there be parking for that space on the site? And how will they through that south driveway?
There will be underground parking available for the commercial use and access from the sidewalk on Lytton Street.
Okay, otherwise people will be parking on the street. Mayor Little, every time you shuffle papers, that's what we're hearing in the feedback, I think. No shuffling. Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Hartford. So there'll be underground parking for the cafe, and if not, people will probably park on the street.
You're correct. I think on both counts for that.
Okay, and does engineering have any, like, how are we managing the parking on the street as we move forward? Because currently parking on the street is used for drop off for the daycare at Ron Andrews, and also pickup and drop off for parents dropping kids off to school. And I'm just wondering how that parking, especially on the east side of Lytton, will be dealt with in regards to any spillover from this complex. Are we looking at, you know, timed parking or limited parking?
Your Worship, Councillor Murray, the signage plan to control parking on Lytton would be resolved as part of the engineering servicing agreement. I don't know the details, but in general, the district is concerned that parking overflow from multifamily developments not affect the use of public roadways. So certainly there could be time-limited parking to ensure access for loading functions.
Because I think we can probably agree that most multifamily complexes, indeed, there is significant spillover from the developments onto public streets. And since this is an area that is accessing both a senior secondary school and a recreation facility, plus on top of that, an artificial turf field and a soccer bubble, there's a lot of uses that this road accommodates. And I think it's really important to maintain that road for those uses and contain all vehicles within the site. And I think that's only fair. Thank you.
Thank you. I do see Thomas Palmer, who's the architect for the project, on. Can you add information to the questions from Councillor Murray?
Good evening. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can.
This is Tom from Integra Architecture. We're the architects for the overall project. So the upgrade to the engineering on for Lytton Street includes bump out parking, so protected sort of parking areas on both sides of the street, in addition to the through path. So that's, and we've done a series of sweep diagrams to make sure that there's no conflicts with the traffic going forward.
Sorry, could I just ask you to clarify bump out parking on both sides of the streets? And is there some sort of a diagram that we could see that illustrates that?
If there is a general site plan in the package, I could point that out, but in general, on any given street, you can have just a straight row of parking, or you can have on either end of parking on the street, you can have where the sidewalk or the boulevard actually bumps out, so it sort of protects both ends of the parking space. It just gives a little bit more protection for the parking.
Yeah,
and
I think what Councillor Murray is curious about is the parking that's provided on the property, not the public space property.
No, sorry, Mayor Little, that's not correct. Okay. I'm on page 206 of the package, or the 206 is in our, so I see these bump outs all the way along Lytton, and Mayor Little, if you look all the way along Lytton on both sides, there's significant bump outs. So you've just reduced the parking ability in this area significantly. And I will tell you, with 2 children, and I had 3 children at Windsor, but I still have 2 within the school, there is a significant row of parking in the afternoon for pickups. Windsor is a French immersion school. It's a destination school. And we have just actually reduced the amount of parking on Lytton to accommodate this development. And that is going to be a significant issue. The street is it's a very wide street, so it can handle the traffic, but we've just, it looks like with those bump outs, we've just reduced the parking. So can I have clarification on that?
Well, the new design of the road would, the specific of the engineering would have to come from the traffic engineer, but the design has been done in consultation with the District of North Van's engineering department. Do we have the engineering department on the call right now, Mayor Little, or on the, who do we have from engineering?
Mr. Hartford, can you direct us to someone who can answer that question?
I don't believe there is anyone from engineering on the meeting this evening, Your Worship, but what I can comment on is the revisions to the road design do include a change to the format of the parking, but they will also include a change to the control of that parking in terms of signage. So previously, there were few restrictions on Lytton Street regarding how that parking could be used. For instance, someone living at the previous Seymour Estates project could park on Lytton Street and leave their car there for days at a time. The intent would be that this parking is managed in a way that balances the needs of Ron Andrews, the school, childcare drop-off, potentially short-term access to the small commercial space within this project.
So just to clarify, Mayor Little, on that point, there was 114 units at Seymour Estates. There's several hundred units, I think. Like, oh, how many total units in this project, Mr. Hartford?
There are 341 total, 310 in this phase.
Right, so 341 in total. So that's, you know, that's 3 times. So I totally concur with the ability to manage the parking from overflow from these units, and I get that part. That's not my point, Mr. Hartford. My point is that the bump outs reduce even 30-minute parking if the bump outs are sidewalks or landing bays off crosswalks, or bump outs to slow traffic that reduce parking. You know, that road every day at you know, 20 to 3 is filled with cars, filled with people and cars. And I'm just wondering why we're not trying to find a balance to accommodate the school and accommodate the rec centers and accommodate the daycare and the preschool in the area, plus all of the recreational activities that is accessed off this road, and by putting bump outs in to accommodate the development. And so I'm just wondering how we address this going forward. Should we have staff follow up or staff report on the road and how it's being designed? And will that affect how this development permit is issued?
Comment from Mr. Milburn. Mr. Milburn.
Thank you, Worship. Yes, if it's Council's wish, we'd be happy to report back on the offsite infrastructure. The development permit before Council tonight is with respect to the on-site works and whether or not they comply with development permit guidelines set out in the official community plan. However, we have heard these concerns tonight, and we will, with Council's direction, of course, come back with more information on how we could address the parking demand in the area so that Council is fully aware of what any changes that are proposed and how we will address the concerns raised.
Okay, I think that's really important. Thank you.
I think Councillor Murray also requested the construction traffic management plan specifically be recirculated to Council. I see a nod from Mr. Milburn there. Great, thank you very much.
I think, sorry, Mayor Little, I'm just one last thing though. I think it's more than circulation. I think we have to understand the traffic circulation to Windsor, the Fields, the dance studios, Ron Andrews, all of it. You know, it's a significant area. It's also an access into a forest. So I really do think Council needs to understand what's going to be happening based on these 341 units and how the traffic will converge.
Yeah, no, I get it. 2 of my 4 kids went to that school. I know the traffic challenges in that area very well. Okay, I see no other speakers from Council at this time. I'm going to call the question on the motion. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carries unanimously. Okay. Next item up for discussion is item 8.6. This is the Mount Seymour Lions Housing Society, Bowen Court and Apex Avenue Housing Agreement. I'm going to go to Mr. Milburn first.
Thank you, and good evening, Your Worship, members of council. Ms. Ryder, Manager of Real Estate and Properties, is with us tonight to provide a brief introduction to this property and this request, and staff's recommendation is on the screen. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. Ms. Ryder.
Your Worship, members of Council, tonight staff are requesting first, second and third reading of the Housing Agreement Bylaw 8533 relating to the 900 and 901 Boron Court and 800 Apex Avenue, properties owned by Mount Seymour Lions Housing Society. The housing agreement will ensure that the 94 units in these complexes will remain as affordable housing rental units into the future. The housing agreement will ensure that the rents within these units are less than 80% of market of comparable units in North Vancouver, prohibit subletting and assignment, and the use of the units as short-term rentals, as well as require the operator to submit financial reports and rent schedules to the district. Mount Seymour Lions Housing Society has been providing affordable rental housing in the district since 1986 and owns and operates 4 developments, including Lions Court and Lions Plaza. Lions Court provides 67 2- and 3-bedroom townhouse units. Lions Plaza provides 27 1- to 4-bedroom townhouse units. The operating agreements with CMHC and BC Housing restricting these developments to be used for affordable rental housing has expired. These agreements provided a restriction of the use of land that subsequently reduced the market value of the properties. Now that there are no restrictions in place, BC Assessment can reassess the land as market rental, which will increase the assessed values of the properties and increase the property taxes. The increase in property taxes will need to be passed on to the tenants, increasing the rents in these developments. It should be noted that the Mount Seymour Lions Housing Society are not requesting a property tax exemption. By registering a housing agreement, it will ensure that the property taxes for these developments will remain at their current level and the affordability for tenants will be maintained for the 94 rental housing units into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ryder. I'll be moving the staff recommendation. Is there a seconder on the matter? Second by Councillor Back. Okay, just my own comments on the matter. This has been a great community service provided for a very long period of time to our community, and I look forward to it continuing to offer that benefit to the community going forward. I understand the justification, which is that you don't want these facilities to be taxed at highest and best use necessarily when they're also providing a community service back, and it's not unreasonable for us to improve their case with BC Assessment to say why they have a limited value, particularly if that limited value is going to be passed on to the customers in terms of tax savings and a lower component of taxation. So I will be supporting the staff recommendation. I believe the seconder on the matter is Councillor Back. Do you have further comments?
Thank you, Your Worship. Not too much to add to that, other than, just I recognize, first of all, very familiar with both of these properties and recognize the fact that they represent some truly affordable housing in our community. And I think if this is one way that we can ensure that that stays the case for years to come, then I absolutely support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bond.
Thank you, Mayor Little. Just maybe a question for staff. Do you understand the intent behind going with this method that's proposed of going with the housing agreement for to effectively lower the property value versus the other one that was mentioned, which was having a tax exemption, a permissive tax exemption for the value that I guess would be made up should the property be assessed at a higher value? Why was this method chosen over the other?
Ms. Ryder?
Through your worship, it is the same model that they're using at the moment. So they can afford to pay the existing level of property taxes and still maintain the current level of rents. So they are looking just to maintain the current model that they have that has been implemented through the CMHC and BC housing agreements.
Okay, just from my experience on the Metro Vancouver Housing Committee, I know that sometimes nonprofit and affordable housing operators use a different model in so that when they come up to either refinance or find equity in their property to either do a major renovation, a redevelopment of the property, or for other projects that are potentially used in other areas of the community, having the highest and best use evaluation of an existing property in their portfolio actually allows them to be more flexible and to do more should they want to either substantially renovate or expand their affordable housing options. So I was just kind of questioning the logic, I guess, behind this preferred approach, because we could effectively do the same approach by giving them whatever the difference in the tax is, giving them a permissive tax exemption for that amount and maintain kind of the net cost at the end of the year. So I was interested in that, if that discussion had come up with staff, or if this is just a model that works for the society right now, and that's what they're comfortable with, that's what they know, and that's why we're going with this route. So, Ms. Ryder?
Correct. It is the model that this request did come from the society. They were looking for a housing agreement from the district, and they are comfortable with this current model. The idea of a property tax exemption was not, it was discussed that they were still comfortable paying property taxes.
Thank you. Councillor Curran?
Thank you. Just a question for staff. In light of the news and concerning information about the care of other buildings in the district that are social housing projects, I just wanted to ask that staff could give us an update of all of the inventory, the state of it, because I think the maintenance of the properties over time is something that we definitely need to be more aware of. And I'm pleased that we have staff now dedicated to looking at social housing and other and rental housing in our community. Yeah, because I think that is very important how the buildings are maintained over time as well. So if this is what makes most sense, I think the objective is shared in trying to ensure that these units remain affordable as they can be. Could you just clarify the 20% that's in the covenant? Is that the same? I don't think covenant's the right language, but is that the same as now? Like basically the rents stay the same for the tenants with the new policy that we would be adopting compared to what we have now?
The rents would stay the same. I think there's a little bit of a leeway in the rents at the moment. They are at least 75% of the district's median rent. So we did set a level a little bit higher just to give them a little bit of flexibility if that was needed.
Are they subject to the BC housing 2%, like the same amount, or sorry, the BC Provincial
Residential Tenancy Act?
Thank you.
Correct, yeah.
Okay, Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Mayor Little. Well, this has been one of the successes of, the district's decision in the past, taking land that was available and allowing it to be leased for a project like this. Certainly the value and the cost of our unaffordable community is because the value of land continues to rise. Just on Councillor Curran's point, when I read that article in the paper, it was really sad to think that a 40-year-old building is in the state, the one up in Lynn Valley, is in the state that it is. Like 40 years old is not that old for a building. Travel to Europe and look at the buildings there that have been standing for hundreds of years, and they're in better state than a building up in Lynn Valley. 40 years old. It's shocking that we think that that's old. I hear Councillor Mackay-Dunn, former Councillor Mackay-Dunn in my ear, talking about the nuisance abatement bylaw and the state of buildings and the hammer that municipalities can use to pressure landlords to be able to maintain their building. And I quite frankly don't think that we do enough. I think it is really important that we ask staff to you know, work with our nonprofits to make sure that the buildings that are existing today are in good order. I know the Mount Seymour Lions have put great care into their buildings, and yes, it's a constant you know, amount of work, and it's, you know, construction and maintaining those buildings get more and more expensive, especially when they're, you know, faced with all the extra costs that they have to look at over the years. You know, tax exemptions, they're good, but if properties are based on highest and best use, then, you know, is that really something that can be sustained versus trying to maintain the existing rents? All of these questions and this whole conundrum that we face, we do need to understand it going forward. Those affordable housing units that we have are so paramount to how our community functions. It is the last amounts of property in our community that allow us to continue the diversity in the district, where everything else is just skyrocketing and completely unaffordable. I mean, for anybody to look at a piece of property right now, I mean, you know, the numbers, Mayor Little, that you and I and Councillor Hanson looked at to buy our first homes are in stark contrast to what people are looking at today. And so I think maintaining these lands and making sure those buildings are looked after, and what as a municipality can we do to support those nonprofits, you know, to look after these buildings. You know, the days, I think a lot of these nonprofits too, you know, one of their biggest challenges is just getting new membership to be able to come in and to maintain the organization. Kiwanis, the Rotary Club, Lions, all of those great organizations that have done so much for our community over the years. You know, people are looking at different opportunities to volunteer with, and you know, it's harder to get new membership to be able to do this kind of work. A lot of the caretakers that have looked after these buildings for many years, you know, they're getting older and it's more challenging. I hope that we never see a 40-year-old building in the state that the one in Lynn Valley is in ever again. I hope that our legislation and working with the province can tighten up those requirements and the need to maintain these buildings, because those homes are so, and that housing is so critical to us as a community. So I completely support this. It's a great type of housing that we can offer members of our community. And sadly, when it was built, it was like, oh, we're going to do some affordable housing because land was cheap and partnerships were there. This housing, we could put it everywhere because it would be you know, picked up as soon as possible, because it's really truly the only level of affordable housing that's left in the municipality. Certainly nothing that market, even if it's 50 years old, is affordable anymore.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Next speaker is Councillor Hanson.
Yeah, thank you very much. And very briefly, I totally support this staff recommendation and the placing of this new housing agreement. I just wanted to make it clear in the debate that what we're talking about here is an anomaly of the BC assessment system that would, without this new housing agreement, view these units as essentially market rental units and tax them accordingly. So what we're really doing here, and I'm glad we have the power and capacity to do it, is to correct that anomaly that would, as I say, tax non-market rental units as if they were market rental units. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hanson. I see no further speakers on the matter. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carries. Okay, Council, moving on to item 8.7. This is a text amendment to add cannabis retail store, hopefully, at 1461. They have not signed up to speak. I understand we have Ryan McEwen available for, from the applicant, available for answers to questions from council, but look to council for some, oh, Mr. Hartford, did you have some comments on 8.7? Yes, you do. There we go.
Your worship, I do. Thank you. As a brief overview of this application, the BC Liquor Distribution Branch has applied on behalf of the owner of the property to amend the zoning bylaw to add cannabis retail store as a permitted use for this property located at 1461 Marine Drive. To date, council has given approvals for 3 cannabis stores in the district, one at 385 North Dollarton Highway in the Seymour area, one at 1199 Marine Drive in the Marine Drive corridor, and one at 1520 Barrow Street in the Lynn Creek Town Centre. The current proposal requires council's consideration of bylaw 8523 to amend section 405B1 of the zoning bylaw to allow a cannabis retail store as a permitted use at this specific location. The proposed cannabis store would be located in an existing retail unit that is part of a shopping center at the southwest corner of Marine Drive and Phillip Avenue. The subject property is zoned Marine Drive, commercial zone C9, and the C9 zone does permit a cannabis retail store where the property is included in the table in section 405B1. Bylaw 8523 would amend the zoning bylaw to add this site to that table. A total of 104 on-site parking spaces are already provided at the shopping center, and access to the parking spaces is provided from both Marine Drive and Phillip Avenue. No change is proposed to the existing parking or access for the site. Applications in the district for cannabis retail stores are evaluated relative to the district's non-medical retail cannabis policy, which was approved by council in July of 2019. The proposed store is located within the Lionsgate Village Center and Marine Drive corridor as defined in the policy. And as noted earlier, one cannabis retail store at 1199 Marine Drive has already been approved in this center. The district's cannabis policy does provide council with discretion to assess each cannabis retail store application on a case-by-case basis, and the proposed store otherwise complies with the objectives of the policy. Rezoning bylaw 8523 is recommended for first reading this evening and referral to the required public hearing. That concludes my introduction, and as noted by the mayor, I understand that Ryan McEwen from the BC Liquor Distribution Branch is on the call this evening.
Okay, members of council, looking for your direction on the matter. If someone moving the recommendation, Councillor Hanson has moved. Is there a seconder on the matter? Second by Councillor Back. Discussion. Councillor Hanson, your comments.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm happy to support this going to a public hearing. This rezoning, if it were successful, would facilitate the placement of a BC government cannabis store in this location. I'm familiar with the location. I visited it specifically with a BC government liquor store in mind. I believe it would be suitable, broadly suitable for such a store. As far as I am aware, to this point in time, the cannabis stores that have been placed in the district have not attracted the type of complaints that were feared by some in our community and have fit into the neighborhoods in question without a lot of disruption or, frankly, to the best of my knowledge, any disruption. But in any event, the purpose of this motion would simply be to move the matter to public hearing. We can hear the views of the community on the matter. I'm sensitive to the fact that what we're talking about here is a BC government cannabis store, and I do believe that it's in the community's interest to facilitate bringing BC government cannabis stores to our community. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hanson. Seconder, Councillor Back. Any comments?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, not too much to add. Councillor Hanson's done a great job of summarizing this and some of the positive and potential concerns, but I'm certainly supportive of sending this to a public hearing. I know one of the aspects that has come up with previous applications is sufficient parking, and that's something that this plaza offers and has complementary kind of businesses that are there. I see it's the farm market being sort of the anchor tenant there with Meridian. And as Councillor Hanson pointed out, some of the concerns that we've heard from the community, are ones that really just haven't come to fruition with the cannabis locations that we've already approved in the district. So I can understand that there's, always going to be concern to something that's new like this, but we just haven't seen that in the short time. Granted, it has been a short time, but that those other locations were approved. So for that reason, those reasons, I do support this going to public hearing.
Okay, thank you. Just my own comments, and I understand. Councillor Bond, go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor Little. If maybe a question to staff, if I recall correctly, one other location has been approved in the Marine Drive corridor for a cannabis store. Is that correct?
Your Worship, Councillor Bond, yes, there's one at 1199 Marine Drive.
And that store has that store actually been constructed or occupied at this point in time?
The building already exists. The store is not yet operating.
Okay, so we don't have an operating, that was just a question. Otherwise, I think, yes, this is another location, as mentioned by my colleagues, good access, and I think it should proceed to a public hearing.
I have a question for the applicant. So Ryan McEwen, are you able to join us? My question is the size of the unit. When I understood that the format for the BC Liquor distribution type stores was going to be typically a larger format and footprint, the AJ Print site there doesn't look like it's a very large place compared to potentially some other spots that were considered by the provincial government. And so just kind of curious your comments on minimum size requirements for a provincial store.
Yeah, we've reduced the overall size requirement, just given that there are other stores somewhat close by. So we didn't want to kind of represent saturation of store presence. So having a smaller store should be enough to service the community in the market as it is.
Okay. Comments? Which, sorry? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, well, yeah, so I'm supportive of this going forward for further community discussion, and I think that you're right. It does the store that was rejected along this corridor. This one certainly addresses the kinds of issues that they were facing that the council didn't support at the time, and it's obviously one of the most transit-served areas within the District of North Vancouver with the R2 on this route. So I think it's a suitable site for that. Look forward to the public discussion. Councillor Curran.
Thanks. Just a question. Is the BC government doing some consulting with Tsleil-Waututh, Squamish, and Musqueam with DRIPA, since this is a BC-run liquor store on their unceded lands?
Not to the best of my knowledge at this point. I would have to look into what conversations have been had and report back.
I think that would be important to do, since it is a, well, just generally something I think we need to do better. So.
Thank you, Councillor Curran. I see no further speakers at this time. I'm going to call the question on the motion. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carries. Can I just check in with the clerk? Do we have a proposed public hearing date potentially for that? Has that been determined yet?
Yes, tentatively scheduled for November 16th. We'll proceed with the statutory notice.
Okay, so it's tentatively scheduled for November 16th, but as normally you have to monitor the agendas leading up to that date for confirmation that that will be the date, and also there will be public advertising of the public hearing once we have nailed down the date. Okay, thank you, Council. Moving on to item 8.8. This is bylaws 8459, 8460, and 8461, rezoning and housing agreements for the 62-unit residential strata and rental development at 1210 to 1260 West 16th Street. Mr. Hartford, looking for your comments. Oh, actually, let me just double check. I do have a speaker signed up to speak on this matter. So just before we get the staff presentation, Simon Richards is here in the council chambers. Simon Richards, if you can come on up. Welcome, and you have 3 minutes to address the council.
Your Worship, members of council, thank you for the time. You may recall we were before you about a year ago for early input on this project, and that was about a year ago, and it was 4 years earlier that we made our initial application, so 5 years. We didn't expect this kind of time frame. We think this is a non-confrontational or contentious project in terms of land use and form. We're so consistent with the OCP. We satisfy district policies. The owner has in principle agreed to all of the requirements from staff for dedications and significant scope of offsite services. So basically, we think this is a project that's worthy of council support for the staff recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hartford, your comments?
Thank you, Your Worship. As some background on this project, Cornerstone Architecture has applied on behalf of the property owner to redevelop 7 existing single-family lots to create 2 4-story apartment buildings with a total of 62 units, 31 strata units and 31 market rental units. The proposal requires council's consideration of 3 bylaws, including a rezoning bylaw, a housing agreement bylaw to secure the market rental units in perpetuity, and a housing agreement bylaw to ensure that owners of strata units may rent out their units in future. The site is just under 32,000 square feet in area. It's located on the north side of West 16th Street in the Lower Capilano Marine Drive frequent transit development area. The official community plan designates the site as residential level 5 low density apartment, which envisions low-rise apartments at a density of up to approximately 1.75 FSR. The proposal complies with both the use and density provisions of the OCP designation. Bylaw 8459 would create a new CD 131 zone and rezone the property to accommodate the proposal. The site is in development permit areas for form and character of multifamily development and also for energy and water conservation and greenhouse gas emission reduction. The 62 proposed residential units are formatted in a range of layouts, with 71% of the units as 2- and 3-bedroom layouts that are considered suitable for families. All units will meet the basic accessible design criteria of the district's accessibility policy, with 4 units evenly split between the strata and rental buildings to meet the enhanced accessible design criteria. The applicant is proposing that the project would comply with step 3 of the BC Energy Step Code and include a low carbon energy system. The building mechanical systems are proposed to be entirely fossil fuel free and powered with electricity. 1 level of underground parking is proposed with 70 spaces for residents and 6 spaces for visitors. 3 surface parking spaces are proposed, accessed from the lane for car share use. All residential parking will include outlets for level 2 electric vehicle charging. And the overall parking ratio, excluding the visitor parking, is just over 1.1 parking spaces per dwelling unit. For bicycle parking, including the visitor bike parking at the site, just over 2 bicycle parking spaces per unit are proposed. A question has been raised regarding how people would access the property, and I'd like to show 1 slide with a map to explain that. So bear with me for a second. So I hope everyone can see this map.
Yes.
So the site itself is shown in light blue on the north side of West 16th Street, Marine Drive, Pemberton Avenue to the east. The primary vehicle access route to the site would be from Marine Drive down south on Bridgman Avenue through the rear lane to access the underground parking garage. Secondary access would be available from a lane that accesses Marine Drive and a lane down to West 16th Street and out to Pemberton Avenue. There is no direct access between the main part of West 16th Street and Pemberton Avenue. The blue dot would remain in the form of a cul-de-sac. So I'm going to stop sharing. And that concludes my comments. The 3 bylaws are recommended for first reading, and the rezoning bylaw is recommended for referral to the required public hearing.
Thank you. I'll be moving the recommendation. Is there a seconder on the matter? Second by Councillor Bond. Just my comments. It complies with the OCP requirements. It creates rental in perpetuity. What I'm looking for in the public hearing is impact for the traffic access and egress to and from the site. West 16th, the stub of West 16th that's on the east side of the diverter, or sorry, the cul-de-sac, is actually really heavily burdened right now. The McDonald's is actually has a consistent lineup that actually blocks that stub leading into the south side of the property there. I get that that's only one component of the access to and from the site, but it already has problems turning left north onto Pemberton from that West 16th stub, which means that you're going to have either people egressing from Bridgman, which is fine. There's an existing intersection there, which I think is the preferred, or possibly I think that you can, between the Subaru and the McDonald's, I think you can go up that laneway to the north, and we should make sure that about that, because I don't know if that's one direction or not. Can you speak to that, Mr. Hartford? The lane between the McDonald's and the West 16th building, is that one direction?
Your worship, it is 2 directions, but it is right in, right out at Marine Drive.
Right, okay. But I still think that we should be encouraging much of that egressing traffic to head back out to Bridgman to the proper intersection rather than popping out, because when you come out from that spot onto Marine, there's a fence that goes down that really blocks the view around it. But anyway, I look forward to public comment on that matter on it. I did also want to note that there's the accessibility of the project. I think maybe there may be more ways to push that up slightly. This is a very accessible, walkable neighborhood in that it's flat, has sidewalks on both sides of most of the roads throughout this corridor, and lots of services within a 400-meter distance. And so it is an ideal place to place accessible units, including enhanced units, and look forward to their presentation on that in the public hearing process. Next speaker I have was the seconder, which was, I believe, Councillor Bond. Any comments?
No, thanks, Mayor Little. I think we saw this project in quite a bit of detail about a year ago, as the applicant mentioned at a early input meeting. And, I think one of the considerations, the discussion we had at that time was a desire for either more rental, more affordability. And I think just in the analysis of this specific site with the limitations that council has placed on it already, there's 7 small lots, which are more challenging, financially challenging for an applicant to assemble and put together. They have to pay more for a larger number of smaller lots than they would should the parcel have been bigger. And also the height restrictions imposed by the existing community plan in this area, not allowing, say, 5 or 6 stories, which might allow more rental housing to be constructed or more affordability to be put into the or a non-market component to be put into the proposal. I think that the applicant has done, responded as well as they can in a viable way to the concerns and the directions expressed by council and staff in our plan. So I think it's a proposal that, as you said, Mayor Little, adds rental into this this part of the district, which I think is needed, and has responded well to the input that council and our planning guidance documents have provided. So I think it's definitely worthy of testing its merits at a public hearing.
Councillor Murray's, Curran, and Hanson. Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Mayor Little. I share many of your concerns in regards to the access and the traffic, and I think it's something that we really need to make sure that we are understanding. You know, so often, especially along the Marine Drive corridor with the existing zoning already in place for, three-story density, and then the subsequent properties in the rear of Marine Drive. I think we really need to understand how everything works down there. And at the same time, understand our commercial, our business, our light industrial part of that area, because it is a, commercial light industrial, one of the last bastions in the district in regards to that kind of land use. And I think we have to be very careful that we maintain it, and then we don't burden it, or that it doesn't burden the neighboring developments that we're considering. And we have to make sure that they both work together. And there's a lot of change going on in that area. I think we rarely get, updates from staff or the data. And I think the Affordable Housing Task Force, was trying to reach a place where they could look at the data and see if what was actually being built was actually doing what it was meant to do, or what was being considered was actually, doing what it said it was going to do. I don't know. I think we talk about density, and that density, doesn't bring automobiles, that there's no impact. There's more people walking. And I think we need to actually understand that. And I don't know if we do understand it. I know that when we took out that little access road that goes into the Save on Foods for that development application where White Spot sits right now, there was some discussion about whether we leave that in or take it out. And I've noticed in that Save On parking lot, the parking lot that accesses the White Spot, the daycare upstairs, and the offices that exist in that commercial building, it's sort of landlocked. There's a lot of cars there first thing in the morning that don't leave, and there's nowhere really to sort of pull in and go to White Spot. Often you have to park in the Save on Foods parking lot to be able to use the restaurant, because the parking plan just wasn't really thought out as to how daycares were going to be able to accommodate all the people that are coming to drop their kids off and pick up, and at all times during the day. So I do think there has to be, planning has to be able to have some mechanism for us to gauge what we're approving and whether or not it's doing what we think it's going to do. Councillor Bond brings up an interesting point that, 7 lots, it's hard to consolidate those 7 lots, purchase them, and then do this level of density. But, the ironic part of that discussion is that every time we build something new, the land value goes up again. And again and again and again. Every time something new is brought into the neighborhood, and I don't even think it has to be that anymore. It's just being on the North Shore, the land values keep skyrocketing. So, when does the ceiling crack? When does it, when is it enough? When is it ever going to be affordable? I don't think it's ever going to be affordable. We're never going to reach that place unless it's our own land being put up. And we dictate that only truly affordable housing for those that are truly in need are able to accommodate those units. But below market is not affordable. Market will just continue to rise. So I would like to have a discussion, Mr. Stewart, going forward, and our talk about our council priorities going forward, about going back and just assessing what we've approved, what we've done, and did it, just like we were looking at the OCP, did the OCP, and I think that's what the OCP monitoring committee was supposed to look at, did it actually produce what we thought? And are these areas in these neighborhoods in the district functioning and circulating the way they're meant to? Or are we just adding more congestion? And I note in the package, I don't know if it was raining that night, but all of the comments in my package, they're all kind of blurred. Some are the pen you can actually read, but then the rest of it, I can't read anything. So maybe staff can forward us those comments from the public meeting, something that's more legible than what's in the package, because I can't read half of what's in there. And what I do see though, is that there's a lot of comments about congestion on 16th, no parking on 16th, and it's getting challenging for the residents that are there right now. And that's in some multifamily and single family. It's not just the single family neighborhood. So those are the kind of things I'd like to understand going forward. I'm reluctant to go forward with this until we have that information, but I didn't have as many concerns as I seem to have now when it was brought forward previously. So I'll be interested to see the comment from the community during the public hearing, but I think we have some information that we've got to get, and we've got to do a better look at, what the community is, how it's shaping up. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Curran.
Thanks. A lot's already been said. I'll just add that there are folks that are on short-term rentals in those units. And so I think I'm putting a lot of work on our new hire, but I do think that is important, and we hopefully will hear from folks if they have concerns during the public hearing, because I think that we can build these new units, and I think it is a reasonable mix given all of the constraints that Councillor Bond outlined and the applicant outlined. But I also think we can look after people, and I think that's the story that doesn't get out enough. I think that we can do both, and so I will look forward to doing that. I know that there's a relocation package and there's some new policies that council has put forward in around that, but just that general idea that we or value that we look after folks who are here and folks that are coming here. So I think we can do both. I look forward to this moving forward.
Thank you, Councillor Curran. Councillor Hanson.
Yeah, thank you very much, Your Worship. I will not be voting in favor of this proposal going to public hearing. And this is not a criticism of the proposal nor of the proponent. Rather, I remain frustrated that despite urgent need for affordable rental and other kinds of social housing, we continue to see more and more market housing proposed for the district. And I recognize that this proposal calls for 50% of the units to be market rental. And I'm grateful for this. And this is a progress compared to the last council, the 2014 to 2018 council that I sat on, where the proposals tended to be straight market strata ownership. We're now starting to see proposals where there's a component of rental. However, from my point of view, there's no reason why this proposal couldn't be 100% rental. Why have we not explored rental-only zoning for areas like this? And I'm further frustrated that the proposal includes 79 vehicle parking spaces. At least until we have better transportation infrastructure, better ways of moving around the North Shore and back and forth across from the North Shore over to the other side of Burrard Inlet. Why do we need more and more cars straining our already overtaxed transportation system? Can't we visualize housing options that are near transit and that don't involve car usage? And I recognize that this particular council has been moving forward proposals of this type with a mix of strata and rental, and in many cases, such as the Seymour Estates that we looked at, it's a larger project, but that we looked at just earlier in the meeting, and a development permit, non-market rental is often included, but it's not included here. So I simply believe that we keep missing the urgency of the affordable housing situation, and that we need to move faster towards developments that are rental, both market rental and affordable rental, social and supportive housing, and that by simply continuing to approve these market proposals, we're losing sight of the urgent task in front of us to provide a more balanced community and housing for more facets of North Vancouver district residents. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Beck.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I'll be supporting this moving to a public hearing. acknowledging that I think rental in this part of the district, as has been mentioned by my colleagues, will be a real asset to this area. I think, 31 rental units, 31 strata units with over 70% being 2 and 3 bedroom. I really appreciate as well having the larger homes. I also recognize the bicycle storage, 62 bicycle storage spaces within the parking area. And just recognize also that this has been a long process, as the applicant stated, about 5 years to get to this point. So I think given that they have looked at every aspect of what this council's been asking for to the best of their abilities with this site, I look forward to seeing it go to a public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I see no further speakers from council at this time. So I'm going to call the question on the motion. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Can I just clarify with the clerk, as a part of that, a public hearing is one of the next steps. Do you have a public hearing date that's proposed?
Tentatively looking for the middle of November, just confirming the date with council's schedule right now.
Okay, again, shooting for the middle of November as a tentative date. We will be firming up that date and issuing proper public notice in advance of that meeting. But that is the tentative plan. Okay, council, we have completed the regular business of the meeting, and we still have some time. And so I'm going to go around the horn if members of council would like to make a report about their activities over the last few weeks. I see Councillor Hanson.
I'd like to report on 2 committee meetings that I.
It's the Indigenous Relations Committee of Metro Vancouver, which held their meeting on October the 7th, 2021. Of interest is the fact that the budget for that committee, which was $600,000 in 2021, has been raised to $1.4 million and with slight increases going forward. So that's a very tangible expression of commitment by Metro Vancouver and that committee as to its desire to pursue reconciliation and to ensure that we're funding the necessary steps along the way towards that reconciliation. Also, there was a detailed discussion of a recent court decision called Yehi and British Columbia, which talked about the cumulative impacts of resource development on treaty rights and treaty compliance. It's an important judgment and one that will certainly have an impact on local governments as they contemplate, as they say, treaty rights and treaty compliance. Moving ahead to the North Shore Standing Committee on Substance Use, which held its second meeting of the year on October the 13th. I'm now the chair of this body. It had 2 interesting discussions. One is a motion which I put forward proposing that a letter be written to the Minister of Justice calling for full legalization and regulation of illicit substances as a way of preventing death. We're still losing 5.5 to 6 British Columbians per day due to opioids, fentanyl and carfentanil toxicity in street drugs. Very lively discussion, and we've adjourned that discussion to January the 12th, where it will be resumed. And it was very interesting to hear the points of view of all of the constituent elements of that committee, including the local police forces. There was also a very interesting discussion on the intersection between substance use and homelessness. And suffice it to say that there is a correlation between mental illness and those that are not able to afford housing, and a correlation between mental illness and substance abuse. So those were 2 committees that I attended, and I will report back further when those committees meet again. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hanson. Next reports from Councillor Curran.
Thank you. Just a few events to report. I challenged the Windsor Green Team to make reusable cutlery roll-ups to eliminate single-use cutlery in their school, and they agreed to do it. And I said I would give them thrifted fabric. So I delivered thrifted fabric, and they reported back that they are successfully making reusable cutlery roll-ups out of thrifted cutlery and thrifted fabrics that they have made, which I think is awesome, with the goal of moving towards eliminating all single use in all of the schools and kind of challenging high school to high school. There was also an event in Deep Cove run by brought on by Ocean Ambassadors Canada to announce the and Reusables, a company called reusables.com. And there was a beautiful event on the weekend with music and celebration of the businesses that are participating in this reusables program. So moving past single use altogether, and you can download an app and you can go to many restaurants east of Seymour to participate in this program. And the idea is that you can get a cup, a container, different things for your takeout. You can take it back and then you can put it in different deposit locations. And so it's like a lot of businesses working together. It's a first in Canada. It was very exciting. And so if you visit any of the businesses east of Seymour that are participating, please support those. And then I was also able to visit the North Shore Homelessness Action Week, the Connect Day, and was able to meet with some of the folks who work in our community with people who are experiencing homelessness, hearing some of the challenges that they're facing, both with COVID and housing, and the poisoned drug supply, as Councillor Hanson pointed out, and really wanting to elevate that story, those stories in our community, because it's not something that everyone sees, but it's certainly something that is very present in our community. So I think that was really great to see all those providers in the district through that homelessness funding that we received tri-municipally. There's been some great work happening on that front, including that new van that the Parks Department has to, that I was able to get a tour of anyway, so if council hasn't seen that, but just grateful for all of the volunteers and providers in our community that we don't often hear from or about, but I think we should make sure that we're making sure that we are hearing from and talking about the challenges that they face. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Councillor Curran. Next up is Councillor Bond.
Thank you, Mayor Little. One update from the Metro Vancouver Housing Committee. At our last meeting a couple Wednesdays ago, we reviewed the financial plan for the next 5 years. And of note, over the next 5 years, Metro Vancouver Housing plans to construct about 740 affordable homes across the region with a total capital budget of about $320 million. Those homes include ones that are both approved at this point in time, but also budget for ones that are not yet approved, perhaps one in the District of North Vancouver. We also received some more information on operations, and one thing I think that's interesting and useful is council's discussed a lot about what does affordability mean. And the more I think we learn, the more we understand that it doesn't actually mean one thing, it means many things. And we spoke previously about Metro Vancouver's model of having 30% of the homes in the portfolio, or roughly a third, 30 to 33%, being rent geared to income, and the other being low-end market. And so we got some more information about, and we're receiving more detailed information about what that actually means. So of 1/3 of Metro Vancouver's affordable homes, that 1/3 that's rent geared to income, half of those are at shelter rates. So those are ranging from $375 to around $600 a month. So that's about 15% of Metro Vancouver homes are rented at shelter rates. The other ones in that third, say the other 15%, are rented at rents up to the housing income limits in the Metro Vancouver. It's kind of spread out through the portfolio. So if you remember what housing income limits are, that's kind of a set household income in order to rent an affordable unit. So if you're renting a bachelor or one bedroom, it's affordable for a household income of $40,000. If you're renting a 3 or 4 bedroom, it's affordable for a household income of $80,000. And then the remainder, the other 70%, which are needed to balance the portfolio to make it financially sustainable, are somewhere in between, up to a maximum income of around $115,000. So it's interesting to learn more about what affordability can mean and what types of housing that Metro Vancouver does provide to the different income levels that are needed. So I thought that was a really interesting update, and I'll bring more information like that to council as I learn more.
Thank you, Councillor Bond. For my own reports, I did do, I sit on the Zero Waste Committee for Metro Vancouver, and we have 2 facilities that are nearing completion, one in Surrey and one in Coquitlam, and they handle the basically transfer capabilities for waste drop-off. And it was fascinating to go and tour both of those facilities and see modernization of transfer stations and how they've changed from the way that ours was built in North Vancouver. I also, we have tomorrow a branding launch coming up, and this is for Next Step, which was the Integrated North Shore Transportation Planning Project, sort of the next evolution of its process of jointly with 5 North Shore governments, 2 First Nations governments, and 3 municipalities all working together at the same table to advance transportation priorities for our community, and we'll be doing a launch event tomorrow. And the other one that I just wanted to pass along, which I thought was a positive, I'm going to turn a negative into a positive here. We had a fire in Deep Cove over the weekend, and there was huge disruption because of it. The fire hose had to be right across the road, which blocked the major intersection. And with the temporary work going on down there because of Gallant Creek, it was a huge imposition to the neighborhood. I just have to say that compared to where we were at a year ago, where people were angry and tired, and they were quite upset going through COVID, and the patience wasn't there. I have to say that for an hour and a half, I helped people, give them directions to get the back way out of Deep Cove, and everybody was understanding and patient. And even though the lineup was long to get out of there, people were quite pleasant coming up. And I hope that is a symptom of the opening back up of the economy post at the tail end of the major COVID lockdowns. I hope that means that people are getting out and addressing mental health by meeting their neighbors and chatting with family again, and hopefully having some in-person contact, because I was really, really impressed. It was a very frustrating and exhausting situation for people being stuck in traffic for a very long period of time, but they were all very understanding. And so that was my takeaway from that. I just want to, again, express my appreciation to our D&B Fire and Rescue Services for the prompt attention that they gave to the situation, which helped to bring that fire under control quickly. But that was the takeaway from it, was that I was actually impressed with how patient and gracious people were being in the situation, which I have to say, I don't think we were there a year ago. But okay, Council, I see there's no further hands, so no further reports at this time. So I will accept adjournment if somebody moves adjournment. Adjournment's been moved by Councillor Bond. I accept. Once again, to members of the public who participate in tonight's meeting, we really do appreciate your feedback and participating with us. Thank you to members of council, and obviously thank you to the members of the Legion. Wish them well on the start of their Poppy campaign coming up. It's a very important time for supporting our veterans and our community. On behalf of the council, thank you all so much. Have a great evening.